hypnotic dance. She holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me. And it's showtime. Showtime, ladies and gentlemen. Here on our Wednesday edition of the Paranormal Portal. How you doing? It seems like it's been forever since we've done a show. I don't know. It's just me or what? But yeah, feels like we haven't been on the air for weeks. I'm serious. It really feels that way.
Kind of does.
Does it to you too?
Yeah, it kind of
Okay,
does.
so it's not just me.
Well, maybe it's just you, but...
For the sake of argument, it's just you. But however, I feel the same way. If it comes, yeah, if anybody asks, it's just you, though.
It hurts when you miss the things you love.
Well, you love me?
Or the show.
Oh, you bastard. Don't stomp on my heart.
Stop it.
Stop being mean. And that voice from the Peanut Gallery, of course, we all know and love, is our wonderful friend and co-host, Mr. Don Longbeard. Welcome to the show, Don.
Hello.
As he pulls a big chug of swill.
How is ya?
Yeah, we're good, I think. I think we're good. It's Wednesday night, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
You have made it to Hump Day's Eve.
Yes.
Hope you're having a great night and have had a great week thus far. I don't know. It's been a good week, I guess. I haven't, I've got so many seasonal things that I'm trying to wrap up now that it's just taken all my time, And today, me and the Minion had a solo day.
There you go.
Mom went out of the house, and he and I just tore the place up. It was a great time.
Nice.
It was fun. It was fun. He's 3 now, so it's like everything is a freaking game. Hey, let's get your underwear on. No, get over here. And please, this has got to be paranormal. How the hell do they not know they have to pee until the moment where it's just about to blow? Oh, God, I got to pee now. I don't know what the hell happens, but it's like their nerves have just shut off until it's just agonizing. And he'll start, he'll be playing and he'll be doing the pee dance. His legs are crossing and, he's wiggling. And it's like, just go. And it's just, and it's like a 911 every time. It's like, oh my God, I gotta pee. Really? You didn't notice it until now? It's like, just do it as soon as you feel a little bit. Oh man, it's just so funny. It's like, oh my God.
And he's talking about his Minion, not me.
Right, yeah, I don't help
He only does that on Wednesdays and Saturdays.
I normally don't help Don pee. Okay, I never do. But
thank you.
Yeah, I'm just going to clear that up now before
goodness. Well, welcome to Hump Day.
Thanks. Are you changing the subject? I wasn't quite done yet.
Okay, well, go ahead.
So,
show, buddy.
The other thing that just cracks me up
okay.
is for little 3-year-olds, for them to pee, they, like as adults, we just kind of make enough room to make it happen. Adult men, anyway. But children have got to just drop it down to the ankles. They just can't manage it unless, like, he's got to be stepping out of his stuff and like going full waist down, buck naked in order to pee. It's just like, really? You've made this a hell of a lot more work than it needs to be. And it's really problematic in public restrooms. Just like, no! I'm wrapping them up in paper towels to get out of there. It's like, we're not wearing those again. No, I'm just kidding. That never really happened, but it was funny.
Oh, my.
It was funny in my head. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, you've just gotten a little piece of my world. But it was a wonderful day. We had a lot of fun playing.
Good.
And yeah, I mean, then you came over, and we've been fast at it since.
Yep.
But, ladies and gentlemen, it is Wednesday. It's Hump Day's Eve. This is the Paranormal Portal. I am Brent Thomas, joined by my co-host, Mr. Don Longbeard, and all of you. You guys are like the other co-host. And, if you got something you want to add to the show, then unfortunately the call-in number will not work tonight. Our Wednesday shows don't have the ability for the call-in board. So
That's when you call in or dead.
yeah, that's on Fridays, Saturdays. You can call in, of course, but on Wednesdays, if you have any questions or any comments, please post them in the chat. And hello, Pixie, I've missed you as well. Good to see you. MCat, Lady Death, how you doing, girl? Diana is in there. Taz.
Yep.
Who have I missed?
Renee, MCat,
Renee.
Diana. Did you
Renee,
say
of
Diana?
course.
Yeah.
I did. Yeah.
Did you get Lady Death?
I
Okay,
did.
cool.
Yep. Lena's
Lena,
here.
yes,
Hey,
Lena.
Lena. Aloha. I would love to go visit Lena.
Durango 911.
Durango, nice. All
That's
right.
a new one. Yeah. Hi.
Hey,
Welcome.
Welcome to the show. Unless you either got a new name or
Or we're just.
you've
not-
just been quiet and we haven't seen you. The chat goes pretty fast.
Welcome to the chat.
Yeah, the chats go really fast, and I apologize. We never mean to leave any of you guys out. Every one of you that comes to watch the show means the world to us.
And don't forget, we did forget Dana.
Oh, Dana. Hey, Dana. And Danny's in here too.
Oh,
Danielle.
is she?
Yep.
Oh, Mister. Okay. Well, hey.
All right, Pat. How you doing, Pat? Thanks for coming. Love you all. Thank you so much.
Oh, he's Haru from TFR. Ah, gotcha.
I'm sorry?
Haru from TFR.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's just an issue of translation.
Yeah.
We don't know you all really, really personally, but we know we
everybody's
love
got
you.
different, personalities
Yeah.
on different platforms.
Different chat names and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but anyway, welcome to the show. Tonight we're going to be doing a show on non-human entities, exploring non-human entities in the world of the paranormal, and by that it can mean several things, and it's a pretty broad blanket statement. But it can mean, of course, cryptids. Anything from the Loch Ness Monster to, puckwudgies or brownies or fairies or, whatever. And as far as the physical, and, of course, Bigfoot, Dogmen, whatever. We're probably not going to discuss Bigfoot and Dogmen because those are such a broad field and a well-established field in the paranormal that they kind of, pretty much deserve their own shows. And we've done several of the shows of those subjects. I would love to do more cryptid shows. We'll have to get Robin Moonshadow back on. She's a lot of fun to talk to about the
Little people.
proto pygmies and little people. Yeah, she's really got that dialed in, and it's been a lot of fun having her on the shows. And but it can also mean spiritual entities, and by that I mean things that were never human. So, like, all ghosts had not always been human. Now, I don't know what the ratio would be. I mean, all we can do is guess. And here's where the problem comes in. There are some people who believe that there are no human ghosts, and it's all mimics. It's all mimicking done by these other entities that want to feel either involved or they have some kind of nefarious plan. There are others who believe, like me, I believe there's a whole spectrum of things out there, some of which were human, some of which were never human. They were never, alive as people and had passed. And there are also other things that they may not actually be ghostly or spiritual at all. They just exist in a dimensional reality that's just a little removed from us, to the point where they can either appear or not appear at will and can interact with our environment. Now, everybody understands the idea of the multiverse, the idea that, there are, universes and universes and universes, and the question is, do these universes and universes and universes exist on top of each other? I mean, we can see other universes like the Andromeda again. No, that's a galaxy, but other universes have been observed, and the neat thing is that at some point, if you go out far enough, it looks like a neuron in the brain.
Right.
And I've always found that absolutely amazing, because it's like the macrocosm mimics the microcosm. So, the question gets to be, and this is more philosophical than anything, but is it one big reality loop? Does one thing loop up to the next thing, which loops back to the beginning? Is it just a big circle of awareness? So in that, what we perceive as being outside of us and possibly observable, when we consider things like the multiverse, are they actually truly existing in a distance, or are they just only perceived as distant because of they're only a little bit of the energy is measurable in this reality, so it seems to be way, 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 way far away. And of course, I'm not qualified to answer any of those questions, but these are all things that consider. But the idea of the multiverse would state that there could be realities and universes with entirely different physics, and perhaps those physics don't anchor them within one reality, and maybe they can be multidimensional, multispatial beings. And so they can be here or not here, or in their own world or not in their own world. And so that becomes largely theoretical. And of course, when people experience the paranormal, you really, unless you get that warm, fuzzy feeling, the smell of Grandpa, and perhaps you catch little items that seem to mimic him, those people, of course, are pretty sure, hey, that was my grandfather. He visited me. He, it smelled just like him, and I saw his face in a picture, and that's him. That's definitely him. But otherwise, when things happen, people are oftentimes jumping to conclusions.
Right.
So maybe there are things out there that pretend to be, because maybe it's for reasons of keeping people at ease and giving them a feeling of comfort because it's familiar.
Right.
So, but we're going to discuss a lot of these other entities that don't seem to get a lot of press tonight, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. I know that I love this stuff. I've been working really hard on some graphic stuff lately for the shows and the channel, and for Don's shows as well, which are going to be coming around in the near future. So it's been a busy week for me, but we're back in the saddle, ladies and gentlemen. So strap on in, get yourself comfy, grab a beverage, and we're going to go for a ride. That was kind of nice, wasn't it?
Yeah. And then I thought, the words in my head were, "Want to take a ride?" from our godfather, Mr. Art Bell.
Art Bell. Oh, really? Yeah, is that his tagline?
That was his, yeah.
The funny thing is that, and I love the paranormal, and I really never actually caught a live coast to coast ever. Mm-hmm. I've heard many of his greatest hits.
Right.
But I really am not overly familiar with Art Bell. I think he was amazing and did a phenomenal job, but before the advent of the internet, you had to be up, or at least my advent of the internet, and I was asleep when Art Bell was on for most of his career. So and although I've always had a deep and love for the paranormal, I've never been a devout coast to coast follower, and that's not a disparaging statement. I would have loved to have been. It's just it wasn't accessible to me at the time, and even now. I have, like I said, listened to many of the greatest hits and the shows that he did, and a lot of them were phenomenal. But I don't know his taglines, his idiosyncrasies and things like that. I just think he was a great guy. I tell you what, though, they had people calling in all the time. Oh my God. That show was so busy.
But there were shows that he had that nobody would call in.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, how did he handle those? Just out of curiosity.
He just kept rolling,
yeah, well, he was pro. I mean, Art was pro. He came
up in journalism, so he knew how to keep that microphone hot.
like that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like that. Keeping the microphone hot, Don. That was pretty sexy, I gotta say.
That's me keeping the microphone hot. How you doing out there? How you doing?
You just made my earphones creepy. Don's going full sexy up in here, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh no.
Prepare yourself. We're going full beard up in here. So, as a note, ladies and gentlemen, before we get too far into this, but we are planning on doing a Halloween show, but it's probably going to be because actually Halloween this year falls on a Wednesday,
yep.
and we're probably going to do it later, so it won't be a 7:00 show like tonight. It will probably be more like an 8 or 9 show. Or somewhere in there. We'll iron that out as we get closer. I'm not sure what your world's looking like that night, but we'll have to talk and see. Well, you probably don't know yet though either, do you?
What?
Like, are you?
I thought we were gonna. Are you talking about Halloween?
Yeah.
I thought we were gonna get together and go trick or treating.
Oh.
I got to get my treat on. Oops. Freudian slip much?
Keeping that mic hot, aren't you?
Oh,
Game
no.
over.
Oh, no.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Don he went from keeping the mic hot to just having
burning it down.
Pooping right all over it. Yeah.
When he does, says, yes, please, Don.
Ooh. Don's got a nibble.
Oh, my gosh.
All right. Well, this is the kind of entertainment you just can't pay for, ladies and gentlemen. But if you do want to, just go to paypal.me/paranormal portal.
That was a great segue.
Thank you. I had to milk that for some kind of value. Jesus. That was ugly for a little bit.
No refunds.
paypal.me/paranormal portal, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
All right. So
Donate to our worthy cause.
Donate for Don's therapy.
Diana's encouraging it.
Is she really? Nice. It's true, ladies and gentlemen. We are all kinds of broken in the paranormal portal, but we have fun doing it. Okay. So, the first thing I'm going to bring to you tonight. What am I missing? Is there a whole...
No, I'm just
Is the chat just ploding
No,
up there?
I'm trying to gather myself again. And,
Don's in pieces.
Goodness.
Isn't that, don't you guys just miss this when we're not doing it? Oh, can you imagine how mundane life would be without the portal?
Renee's like, trick on.
This is going to make it on the highlight reel, Don. You know that, right?
I you know what? If we did have a highlight reel, it would all be me.
It'll just be...
And just you over there cracking up.
I know, it'll be, we're going to have to put together a Paranormal Portal companion guide. It'll just be called Longbearden.
Longbearden.
You just did a long beard.
Oh, no. Oh, goodness.
Yeah, I tell you, this is the portal.
Dying.
All right, let me get to this now. This is kind of a lengthy one, but I think it should be good. We'll see. What the hell? Okay.
Pause for drama.
Well, no, it's not a pause for drama. I'm just they start their account with like they're talking to their best friend, like
right.
With these real personal references, and it doesn't really make sense. So I'm just trying to read into it a little bit so I know what I'd. Okay, so I understand now, and I'm gonna obviously not use that name.
Yeah.
I didn't know what that was. It's not a normal name, but I'd taken my daughter to my mother's for a weekend visit, and I'm not sure that year, but I guess around 1987. Mom lived in Iowa, and my daughter and me were visiting from San Francisco. For years, I'd promised her I'd someday take her for a trek through my haunted neighborhood. This particular time, she held me to it. We began by heading north up Mom's Street, which meant we were heading up a really steep hill. At the top of the hill, we crossed to the opposite side of the road, then entered a yard. It was quite dark as I groped to find familiar paths from my childhood, We stepped over plant material that felt spongy, and I remember thinking things had changed since the last time I was up in the neighborhood. The yards there in the old neighborhood are massive, with backyards the size of football fields or more. Finally, we got to the back of the property, and there found a lovely little bridge crossing a small creek. Then a short trek, and we were on another path that led through the next yard. Then on the street north of my mom's. We headed west, past dark homes nestled or resting in ample yards, towards an S curve in the road. At the lower half of the S, towards the north, was the house with the totem pole. The totem pole. Let me tell you, this thing is weird. It doesn't stand upright, but instead curved like a huge donut sunk half in the ground. It felt like a ceramic or plaster, but I now guess its composition to be probably made out of fiberglass. It was decorated, and I use that term loosely, with an array of lots of odd things. A huge ear, about 1 meter in length, the size of a king, the face of a king off of a deck of cards, unsure of which suit, a large brain, perhaps about 5 times of a normal brain size. Mushrooms, gosh, I'm not able to remember it all, but the thing looked like an acid trip, realized in an incredibly weird sculpture. We stayed just for a short time, and I was leery of the large dog that I knew to have patrolled the property some time ago. Though it was creepy, we hadn't yet felt haunted. We made off for the church grounds, and once there, we lay down in the parking lot to catch a glimpse of the expanse of stars above. That parking lot historically was always where I would acquire the little folk, who then would always follow myself and my whoever was with me for the remainder of our exploration. That night, though, we thought we heard the little one's telltale whisper and giggles, but something else seemed to pervade. Not a sound, but a sense of darkness. No, worse, it felt malignant, vile, evil. My daughter and I sat bolt upright and instinctively began to scoot slowly, so our backs were together as we sat. The little's whispers and giggles were stifled as birds and crickets before a storm. The silence was obvious and unnerving. We moved to stand, and a growl met us. It was less a sound than a feeling. Does that make sense? We decided we should run, and I decided to cut through the Robinsons, a densely wooded yard that opens to a field which leads back to my mom's street. The growl moved in front of us. I could physically see nothing, but the presence was unmistakable. I gently touched my daughter on the shoulder, indicating the direction of our next move, and with a nod of my head, but I didn't stray my eyes from the spot my senses told me was occupied by this being. Suddenly I burst towards the road, not even wasting time to go through the Robinsons. Instead, we went through another yard, long as the other yards, but not as densely treed, and we moved towards the back, perhaps 100 feet from the house, in the side yard. The thing tried to get in front of us. By now, it was making such a racket, I thought I'd go crazy. I can't tell you now the sounds, and I can't make my mind remember them. In fact, I wasn't sure at all if the sounds were in my head only and not out of it. Then I noticed from the corner of my eye that lights had flickered on the neighbor's house, and heads could be seen peering out at us through assorted windows. Somehow knowing that others could hear or sense the thing terrified me even more. I ducked down to hide next to the truck topper, sans the truck, so it was just a topper sitting on some blocks or something, I guess, or in the yard, which had tall grasses all around it, where the lawnmower couldn't reach. My daughter dropped to her knees next to me, gasping. "What is that?" she screamed in a whisper. For a moment, I didn't feel the thing impeding our path. I took the moment to bolt. I hate to say it, but It was I was literally out to save myself. Wow.
Wow.
So much for maternal or paternal instinct.
Well, my daughter was with me.
Yeah, I'm assuming. Not even stopping for a millisecond to check that my daughter was surviving. What the hell?
What? Wow.
I can't imagine ever getting to that place. I got to the gate that separated the neighbor's yard from my mom's across the street, my mom's neighbor across the street's yard, and I was freaked out and not having an easy time with the latch, when again the thing loudly made its presence known. Finally, the gate was open, and we were running across the expansive lawn towards the driveway, a long and winding drive. The formal garden surrounding the house is separated from the front by a long line of trees which run parallel with the creek. As we approached the trees, running so fast that our feet hardly touched the ground, we awoke what sounded like hundreds of sleeping birds, who all at once fled from the trees, screeching and making a horrid sound. Cacophonous. Then I wasn't sure if it were birds I heard, or the thing which pursued us, or both. I should mention here, outside of abject fear, there also seemed to be some weird time/space thing happening. I can't explain or describe it. Everything just felt twisted and not real. Perhaps it was just terror. Finally out of the trees and making our way toward the front gate, imposing Gothic-looking black iron jobby, we didn't break step until we hit the gate and made to climb over. I felt as if, as the men in The Omen who were running from the devil dogs in the cemetery, and had a terrible thought I'd impale myself. I managed not to, and we ran across the street towards the warm glow of the lights lining my mom's front walk. Then could detect the comforting sound of my dog Benji barking in the backyard. We ran up the driveway, crashed through the back gate to collapse on lawn chairs, panting and laughing, almost crying, and not get a word out, and trying to get a word out. As we got our thoughts together, we could finally talk, and we sat and related in hushed voices what each other had felt and seen, etc. And as we did, we could hear that my horses in the pasture behind Mom's house had come up to the fence, which kept them out of the backyard. My dog trotted down to the stone pathway to say hi to them, and we followed. Eventually, we stood at the fence, petting and cooing to the animals. Before me was Zeus, our largest stallion. I remember now, hindsight, that he was acting odd. They all were, skittish. But at the time, I guess I was trying to make things as normal as possible, and I just shook it off. Presently, Zeus took a long step back, an awkward movement because he did so with only one leg, and then he looked straight at me, into my eyes, I think, and commenced to urinating, a long and drawn-out pee. His stance was, how shall I say it, almost threatening, like he was a bull preparing to charge. My daughter and I and the dog were witnessing all of this. The thing dropped down on us from above, and there were no trees above, just an old-fashioned type electrical fence. It dropped to the ground directly between the horse and I, but on my side of the fence. And when I say it dropped, I mean we could hear it, feel the thud reverberate through the ground at our feet, and we were all standing very close, within a 3 to 4 foot circle. Again, let me remind you, I could physically see nothing, but my brain attempted to create a mass in the general vicinity of the thing. Still, I seriously don't remember anything physical. Anyway, the horses, including Zeus, erupted into wild neighing, bucking, and kicking, and scattered as if wolves were after them. Absolutely speechless, I looked at my daughter, my mind gasping for any sort of reason, and my dog broke me of my reverie. Benji was barking and making for the house. Again, we followed him. The flight was excruciating. For a moment, I could not see the house nor the back porch, our supposed safety. Instead, I saw myself from behind, running in panic as though I saw through its eyes. We made it to the porch. Benji was already inside via his own doggy door, and I was tempted to jump through it myself, but My logic convinced me to use the doorknob instead. My daughter and me didn't stop until we run to the front of the house, to the front and formal living room. Once there, we were oddly calmed, collected, moving pointedly. I went to the secretary in the corner and removed a pen. Oh, I guess that's a desk, okay. And paper. My daughter switched on the stereo and retrieved a bottle of Merlot from the wine cabinet. I sat on the couch, pen in hand, with a mind to write our experience. My daughter sat on the floor near the serving coffee table and poured us both a glass of wine. Though out of breath, we refused to show it. We were fine. My cats, one by one, began to saunter into the room. Noticing that we were out of sorts, but not wanting us to think they cared enough to show any concern. This is very well written. Just when everything was beginning to feel all right, a huge cat fight erupted under the sofa upon which I sat. I mean, you could see fur flying out from below, and of course, you know how awful that sound is. There was no doubt in my mind, at that time at least, my cats were fighting the thing right under my caboose. Now that's when the story ends. I know my daughter and I took that bottle of wine to my bedroom, where we sat, and with every single light on, including the closet lights, we did not speak further of the incident that night. We simply waited for the sun, and thankfully the wait was uneventful. I did eventually finish writing the whole story, and I held on to it for many, many years. Though now, since I bought my house in the 1998 of August, I have been unable to locate the sheets. Alas, I've done my best in this retelling. So they experienced something. It seemed to have mass. It seemed to create sound, at least the people believed it did. But there again, was it just psychological or
Right.
telepathic, or was it actually happening? And who knows? I mean, in that state of, I guess it's Shel Dion calls it an adrenalized state, and I like that.
Yeah.
I like that description a lot
Right.
because that really speaks volumes.
And yeah, it triggers that fight or flight.
Right.
And obviously this was a flight, but could it also be an extreme form of pareidolia? You know,
Possibly.
you go out there, thinking, oh, it's creepy out here, but I've been out here a million times, and then something changed while you were gone.
Mm-hmm.
Would it have been possibly your view of what is right and wrong in the world?
Right.
I don't know. The things you've seen in the world, how did that disrupt your childhood memories, things like that? So
And that's interesting. And
it's like changing the nothing.
I can relate to that in a sense, because when I was younger, when I was a lot younger, like 12 years old, I was really into ninjas. I mean, I thought
Right.
ninjas were the coolest thing ever. And they pretty much were at that time. They were just this exciting, these highly skilled, at the peak of physical prowess and ability.
And then you found
Assassins.
out they're assassins.
No, I knew they
Oh,
were.
okay.
And I knew the history, and I knew, the backstory and all of that. But I still thought that their techniques were just so amazing, and I didn't really know, like, really what they did. But in my mind, I'd created this whole reality. So
This
I got a ninja
romantic
suit.
reality.
I got a ninja suit, and I used to go out in the dead of night and creep around the neighborhood. And I lived in the woods, like out in the wilderness. There were neighbors. And so I would creep through the woods and remain unseen, and just, I wasn't like peeking in people's windows or creepy things like that, but I was just sneaking around. I just thought that was so cool. Now, I was completely comfortable doing that, perhaps because, at the time I, fancied myself as a ninja. I don't know.
Of course, yeah.
I was invulnerable, but there was and I always felt comfortable in this area. Always, always, always. But there was just one year where something changed, and I
Right.
can't explain what that was.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like suddenly I didn't feel comfortable anymore.
Right.
Like I felt awkward, and I felt like I wasn't supposed to be there. And I don't know what it was, but it was just like something switched. And maybe it's just part of getting older. Maybe it's some kind of genetic memory coming to light from long distance ancestors or whatever. I don't know. but something shifted, something changed, and I no longer felt comfortable in the dark of night like that.
Right.
You know,
Right.
but I think I've pretty much gotten back to normal, but I don't know what that shift was. I don't know if something came there and I was sensing something in that neighborhood
Right.
that never used to be there.
Right. Yeah.
Which is possible, I guess, but and I don't pretend to know. I can just tell you that I know my comfort changed completely, and I don't know why. Is it some sixth sense of survival instinct, detecting rather,
Right.
some being that decided to make that its home.
But with that in mind, why would it be a negative connotation instead of positive connotation? I mean,
Right.
why didn't you remember it as a child and then it was enhanced instead of,
Perhaps. Perhaps it was more of a developmental thing, but nothing ever happened to me. When I did all these traipsing around in the woods and
Right.
in the forest in the nighttime with no lights and it's being.
But you said you lost your wonder of it, you essentially lost the wonder of it.
No, I don't know if that's how I would say it, but I appreciate what you're saying. I just think that I always have maintained that childish wonder of anything like that for my whole life, I think. But what it was just I felt like, no, you should not go out anymore. That is not safe anymore.
Right.
And I don't know why. I don't know what that means.
Right.
Now, I will say that I have, in my lifetime, encountered and experienced very, very negative entities, and I had to fight. I had to fight through it because it was an attachment of sorts, and maybe it was following that. Maybe it was following that experience where that shift happened. And I don't know, because, the thing with me personally is that I am just in this now my whole life. I mean, I think ahead, of course. I have plans, I have dreams, I have all of that.
Sure, yeah.
And I think behind, of things that have happened as I examine the details of my life and the choices and try to find logic where maybe, I've struggled in things. But I don't always put things in a sequence, like that happened in a now and that now is over. You know what I mean? That's like how my mind works. I have a hard time saying that, well, after I dealt with this real negative thing, then I didn't feel comfortable. Now, if I was more methodical and maybe a more what's the word? Disciplined person,
Okay.
maybe I would have kept that tally going and been able to string those events together and go, yeah, that's exactly what happened.
Right.
After I dealt with that negative thing, and maybe what I was detecting was that negative thing that I pushed out
Sure.
was sticking around. I don't know. That's it's hard to say, and I'm not sure what all that means, but I can just relate
Right.
with this person experiencing their childhood place of wonder and then having it turn and be something completely different.
Right. Yeah.
I guess that was a very round, long, drawn out way of saying that.
Well, it doesn't help. I'm sitting back here going, well, what about this?
No, I
Brent?
like that. I
So,
mean, I like that because when you ask me questions, it makes me examine
Right.
what it is I'm saying and try to, enhance the logic of it. So that's wonderful.
Well, congratulations. Thank you.
You're
But
welcome.
when I was a kid, I loved it too. I lived on an island off the coast of Washington, and I'd go out there, and we had the gully, and basically it was just this drop off. We'd go back into the woods a little bit, and then this drop off, like a 10-foot drop off. It wasn't more than that.
Right.
But we had the gully swing over. It's like a rope swing. And it used to always be like, you could always go to the gully and be in the gully, but you can't pass the other side of the gully.
Oh.
That kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
And that was just, kids playing. It's like, oh yeah, if you get on the other side of the gully, though, you're never going to come back, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, it was always, there was always that one, the one kid or one, couple kids are like, oh, watch this, and, so, and then sure enough, they'd come back, they'd come a long way around behind you, but,
Right.
but, I never had a problem traipsing around, and I still don't.
Good.
because I've come in contact with like wild animals. It's more like armed and ready. But I mean, there are some issues like you've asked me before. Well, don't you get that like hair standing up on your arm and going, there's something wrong here kind of feeling? And well, yeah, but I mean, I think that we are programmed to
receive. No. Sorry. Just jumped into my head.
Yep. But I think we're programmed to be open to the possibility of danger. And so you see something and your brain goes danger, danger, but I don't necessarily think it's a paranormal type thing.
Right.
Sure. It's fight or flight. But you always be ready. So, and that affects the nervous system. So yeah, I've had hair-raising experiences, but based in what I term my reality. So.
Right.
But I mean, I don't think like I've said before, I don't think it's ever caused me to think it's paranormal.
Sure.
So.
Right.
But I have had those strange.
Vibes,
yeah, vibes before, is a good way to say it. I mean, you pick up the energy around you,
Right.
But I've never stopped doing something because well, no, I take that back. I've stopped walking up to the edge of tall buildings. That's kind of, I think my mortality kicks in at that point, but, so yeah, it's just one of those things. Yeah.
Sure.
But, that's the way I think of it. So no, not really. I don't think it's really stopped me from doing anything, not necessarily pareidolia or anything like that.
Sure.
So,
no, I got you. I know that there was one period, and I know it's absolutely stupid and silly, but I guess I was probably in my 20s at the time. But after Jurassic Park, the first one came out, I tell you what, it was
drive faster.
Yeah, it was really creepy to look at the woods and think, what would you do? I mean, and so I always felt like creepy going out into the wilderness after that because, all of a sudden you have these new mental images. I mean, before Jurassic Park,
right.
Dinosaurs were these lumbering,
Yeah.
It was like, well, what would you do? I'd probably walk away because it would never get to me.
And then all of a sudden you've got velociraptors.
Yeah, you've got velociraptors and tyrannosaurs that are going 40 miles an hour. It's like, what would you do? Die?
Yeah, exactly.
Before they were just claymation lumbering oafs.
Yeah. Remember the guy sitting on the porta potty with the paper? Yeah, that'd be me. All legs.
Yeah, what the jeez.
Oro, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, Oro. Good to see you, brother. And thank you to all of you other people that have been filtering in as we've been going here.
That would be include Lewis and Ruthie and
Deb's here.
Yeah.
Nice. I see those faces anyway. And again, if you want to shout out, just let us know you're here in the chat. We will definitely welcome you officially to the show.
And hit that like button while you're at it.
Yeah. I don't have that on the screen. I have no idea how much likes people have.
Right. Well, that's my
Oh, Raspberries is back. Good.
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Well, good.
She was. Deb was on. Was it Deb on or was Sean? Who was?
Sean was on when Raspberries was here.
I think
it was just this last weekend.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's when we met Raspberries.
Yeah.
But really glad you're here again. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely.
That's outstanding, I tell you. It's absolutely outstanding.
It's excellent, Peach Pernod.
So continuing on, let's go. I got another one opened up here, and this one is quite a bit shorter. It says, "My name is Melanie, and I'm 13 years old, and I'm a 13 years old who has had but one experience with the paranormal so far. Here it is. I was 6, and it was a normal November night, and I was in bed by 8 o'clock sharp, as every other night. But I usually stayed up for an hour later. And I was looking out my window, as I had done at the time to get to sleep, and I had always been scared of the dark, and I would be sure to cover my whole body up and leave only a small slit open so I could breathe. But on this night, I had been feeling brave and decided to take the covers off my head. Well, as I was looking out my window, I had felt a creepy feeling come over me, and instinctively threw the covers over my head After the feeling passed, I took the covers back off and my eyes went straight to the window. There in that window were two huge blood red eyes staring at me.
Nice.
I couldn't move. It was as if I was frozen. And then they were gone. I regained enough composure to throw the covers on my head and stay up half the night scared to death. Then about 4 years later, I was in my kitchen thinking about what had happened. My babysitter was watching me, and I asked her if she had any unusual experiences, and she broke down crying, saying that she didn't want the man in the window to come back.
Oh.
And I asked her which window, and it was the same window where I saw those eyes. Wow, very wild. That is a very profound experience.
How old was her babysitter?
I don't know. She says she's 13. That she was 6 when it happened, and then 4 years later, she was talking to her babysitter. So she was 10, and the babysitter must have been, a teenager.
Yeah, probably a young teen, 16-ish.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is probably mid-teen. Because it's like 13 to 19, and 16 is right in the middle.
And then tween teen.
That's like before they're actually teens, right? They call that tween.
Whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. There's new words all the time. I'm getting tired of having to relearn English.
Like a three-nager?
I don't even know what the hell that means.
That'd be your minion.
A three-nager?
A three-nager.
3 years old and acting like a teenager?
What is the other one? I'll have to remember it later. Never mind. Anyhow, so
very cool though.
Yeah.
All right, so that was that story, and again, that doesn't really specify what they saw, but very cool. This next one talks about a white being. This is a story that still haunts me until this day. I'm the type of person who does not believe in ghosts, but I've learned to respect their reasons for being on our plane. Now, that's a very interesting statement. I'm the type of person that doesn't believe in ghosts, but I respect their reasons for being here.
So there must be some belief there somewhere.
Right. That's like a total contradiction, isn't it?
Yeah.
I belong to a group of friends who are really into the paranormal things that are happening in our lives. Being in this type of crowd, I couldn't help myself in believing a swell. With believing a swell? With the way they would tell their stories and being dragged into opening my sixth sense. Call it peer pressure, but I guess that's just the way it is. I'm not sure what a swell is, but anyway. Moving along. For a few days, nothing out of the extraordinary was happening. And I told myself, hey, maybe it didn't work. Given the fact that I did not believe in those kind of things, I thought maybe the ceremony had no effect on me. And when it happened one night, I woke up in the middle of the night and wanted a glass of water. I was so thirsty that I could not wait until the morning, so I went down to the kitchen for a cold drink. And after filling my glass with water from the container, I closed the fridge door, and standing beside me was a white figure with bloody red eyes.
Ooh.
That's got to be so creepy. I was so scared I dropped the glass and closed my eyes and prayed. And when I opened my eyes, there was no one there. So I figured it was just my imagination. So to help me sleep, I had this great idea of watching TV to help me doze off. So I got the remote and pointed in the direction of the television. And now, before I could even turn on the TV, I saw on the black screen that the white figure was standing behind me with a big grin on her face.
Her face.
And this time, together with her bloody eyes. So she was grinning and had bloody eyes.
Menacing.
This was the last straw. I ran up to my mom's room and slept beside her until the morning. The next day, I asked the group to take off their so-called gift from me because I could not take it anymore, and that I never wanted to see the white figure again. Now, that's interesting. So it sounds like they did some kind of ceremonial magic. That story does come out of the Philippines, so
okay.
I don't know, what the story was exactly, what they did.
Right.
But all I'm saying is pick me.
I don't know if seeing a blood red eyes, and a grimace and smile standing behind me would
Right.
be a gift.
Well, here's the thing: is that in some now this does sound like a probably a human entity, and it sounds like they're stuck in what's called the death state. That they
Right.
and perhaps not, but it sounds like that this being is appearing to tell the story, and a lot of people believe that lingering human spirits are linked. Sorry, that was my Skype in my
Hello?
ear. I had a message right in my ear. I got to turn off that sound. That's crazy. But by appearing, they may be telling their story. So you can see the state in which they died, that they were in. Like that's a visual communication, if you will. And that may help them arrive at some sort of closure in order to move on. It's potential anyway. I can't speak to that being for sure true, but it's an interesting concept, and it does seem to, at least help to understand why they choose to appear that way.
Right.
Why would you choose to appear with half your face gone? If you have a choice,
Right.
make yourself look normal.
But you're talking about being stuck in that death.
Right, in that death
image?
state.
Yeah. Okay.
Like that's something they really haven't come to terms with, so
Right.
they appear that way. Well, I don't know. It doesn't seem to do much to help their cases when people can't stand to see them. It's like unless they're actually just trying to scare you. Now, it could be a non-human entity trying to create fear in order to weaken a person, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, it's hard to understand for sure. Do you got something to read?
Yeah. Hold on, just a sec.
I just want
Let me do this real quick. Raspberries. Paranormal Portal Radio at gmail.com. And to answer what you just said to Pixie about it's never been something you felt like you could talk to someone about, and it's hard to write it out. Well, you can always do it anonymously. Just say, email is going to be whatever it is, but you can write it to us, and and we would love to share it, and certainly not, we would respect your wishes to be left anonymous, but that way, maybe if you hear us read it, maybe it would help you to come, possibly, I'm kind of speculating here, about coming to terms with whatever it may be and get other people's opinions on it and still having that anonymous barrier. So I invite you to do that. Paranormal Portal Radio at gmail.com. And of course, like I said, we'd love to read it online, but of course we won't use your name or your YouTube handle or whatever that may be. So we'll change names to protect anonymity. So love to hear about your stories.
And essentially, any of you that have
Absolutely.
any paranormal encounters that you'd like to share, or your ideas on these paranormal encounters that we're discussing, please feel free to email. If you don't mind that we share it. If you just want to tell us about it, that's fine too. I mean, we'd be happy to read your story. It doesn't always have to be on the air. If it's something you're not ready to have broadcast, feel free to email. I'd love to discuss what's going on with you. And the beautiful thing about the Portal community is that we have a lot of gifted people in our community, and they've expressed their desire to help people that are in a bad place or feel like they need help. So we do have resources available as well. So
sure, absolutely.
But I mean, I just want to be there to help anybody that feels like they need the help. And if you just want to share it, that's wonderful. I'd love to read it on the show and let the world hear your story.
Right. Diana said it pretty good. There's no judgment here, and a lot of people have such an array of experiences. So it may not be as uncommon as you may feel.
Right. What you're going through in this community, I'll guarantee that somebody can really relate with what you've been through.
Apparently so, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we have the greatest listeners and the most supportive listeners.
Sorry. I got the fidget spinner again.
Oh, Christ. I'm going to hide that thing. Sorry, I didn't mean to cuss. But...
Oh, boy. So anyhow.
Anyway, somebody in the chat room had made a comment about the ghost audio, and I forgot.
Yeah.
We didn't even start it, so I'm
Yeah.
going to start it up.
Renee asked if that noise. No, that was his Skype ringing.
Yeah, that was a Skype notification.
But he just started it up, so thank goodness.
I didn't even remember. That's what I mean. It feels like it's been
Right.
forever since we've done the show.
Right.
And it's got to be almost a time anomaly. I swear to God. It's just like, I mean, that sounds funny and all, but I swear to God, it feels like...
Some days it's like, oh, we were just here and we're just so excited to be back. And some days it's like, we haven't been here in a month and we're so excited to be back.
Right. I mean, there's always excitement to the shows. Don't get us wrong. But it's just this last several days just feels like forever.
Day. Yeah, long week. Yeah.
Okay, let me just set up this new session and you go ahead, take it away.
So, speaking on entities, and something we hear a lot, especially from our TFR family, we hear about DMT entities. And so here are 10 brief encounters with entities regarding DMT entities. Some of them are just stories, but they're just quick ones, but they'll also talk about, there's a couple in here that talk about what they look like. So, I'm going to skip that one. This one says, my first trip, I felt a very womanly, motherly figure next to me the whole time, kind of guiding me through it. Now, these are people who are experiencing a DMT trip, similar to ayahuasca. Now, don't get me wrong. Mr. Our friend Chris Gio and Cherie, Miss Cherie would have better information. But this is regarding DMT trips and the entities that they meet during those trips. So anyhow, my first trip, I felt a very womanly, motherly figure next to me the whole time, kind of guiding me through it. I felt like all 5 of the individuals in the room plus her. I felt all 5 of the individuals in the room plus her. And her presence is very calming to me. Suddenly, a humanoid figure made entirely of white light with rainbow tendrils sprouting from its back appeared to me. It told me that I had nothing to fear. If he doesn't love you yet, he will. It told me that I had a happy future to look forward to, and that the love I was experiencing was entirely real. So apparently they have the ability to tell us things that we don't even know that we're supposed to be asking. And that's part of what, as far as I understand, some of what DMT trips do. This one says, my DMT breakthrough, I'm sure I interacted with other beings. I don't really remember doing that specifically. The whole trip was so hazy after coming back, I don't remember living what seemed a lifetime in a matter of minutes in other dimensions or universe as other beings with no recollection of myself here on Earth. That seems like they were just totally disconnected. Weren't ready for it, maybe. This guy says, my third time trying, I was in a room full of friends. Dark experience of my life, but most humbling. I got to my dimension space. So I got to my dimension space, and this crazy old witch lady was sitting next to me laughing. She projected ages of war, death, and murder in front of me. She laughed the whole time, and at the end she looks at me and says, you think that's bad? Watch this. Then proceeded to eat her face, followed by her entire flesh until she was nothing but a sack of a bloody mess. The whole time she was laughing, and at the end, she wouldn't let me look away. My friend then walked in the room, scratched my head and said, hi, and that pulled me out. So, again, I don't think that person was in the right mindset. And from what I understand from our friends on TFR and the people that we know, DMT and ayahuasca is something that needs to find you, not something.
Right.
Not something you're supposed to find. It's not recreational.
Yeah, it's not recreational at all. In
Right.
fact, that's incredibly counterproductive. It's
Yeah.
not a high. It's not the same thing at all. I mean, I've through my life I've experimented with many things, and when I was much younger, obviously, but I've done the recreational thing, and that was fine. I mean, I was a young guy. I was of age, so I wasn't going to embarrass my family by it or anything, and I just wanted to see.
Right.
My whole life I've always been about understanding and experiencing. I think that's important because it's easy to be on the outside and go, oh, drugs, druggies, you know, and just dismiss
Right.
something. But here's the thing with DMT, it is, you know, it's the best way I can explain is it's like getting the cheat code to a video game and being able to look several levels ahead. It's like you can see things that you don't see normally.
Mm-hmm.
My experience with it was incredibly profound and unnerving. You know, I was a little reluctant because, you know, I don't know. The worst thing for me in life is to lose control. Like, I don't like losing control. I like to be in control of myself and control of my experience. And so before trying it, it was like, well, you know, I'm worried about that because I don't know. It's just always been important to me to be in control of what I was doing. And now, upon doing it, it was like, you hear the term hyperspace all the time, and
Right.
hyperspace it's pretty much a great way to explain it because there's no other way to explain that feeling when it hits you.
Right.
Boom. It's just like, you know, when you're watching Star Wars and you see those lights stretch when they flip the switch in Millennium Falcon and they're jumping to light speed, it's like the stars stretch and just suddenly boom.
Right.
And that's exactly what that felt like. It was just like reality just stretched and boom. And I closed my eyes and suddenly I was in blackness. And I was just sitting there and I had lost my sense of everything. I could think, and I had to remind myself to breathe because I just instinctively wanted to hold my breath. It was just like, you know how you get to that place? And I had to tell myself, okay, breathe. And I was like, I lost my sense of self. I lost my sense of identity. I lost my sense of knowing and understanding initially.
Right.
And I was just in this space going, who am I? What am I doing? Why am I sitting here?
Right.
And it was just this really puzzling experience because the circumstance of my life was just suddenly not there. I mean, I was just disconnected from everything, and perhaps, you know, good, bad, or otherwise. I was just disconnected.
Right.
I was just floating, and I was in this space going, what am I doing here? What's going on? And suddenly, this amazing mandala of light filled my entire field of vision with my eyes closed. And it was incredibly intricate. I mean, you know, I'm artistic and I draw and can paint and all of that, but I couldn't in 100 years have sat down and created this pattern because of the intricacies and the movement and the flow and it was just like this pulsing mandala pattern, and it was not a round pattern. Like when you think of mandalas, you're thinking of a round pattern. It wasn't like that. It was like my whole field of vision, so it was more rectangular, and it was just pulsating all the way through and on all these weird light interplay. And I was like, whoa. And I was looking at it and going, wow, that's the most profound thing this side of dreaming that I've ever experienced with my mind. And I opened my eyes, and that's where it really became incredible, because on every surface, like of the walls, of the ceiling, which was angled, of every chair, this mandala of light pattern was impressed on it. It was exactly with the contours, and it bent and molded with whatever I was looking at. So it was like I was seeing a different fabric of reality than what I normally see with my eyes. And everything was pulsating and it was interplaying with each other, and it was all connected, and it was incredibly profound. And then I looked to the person I was with, who just happened to be Chris. And when I looked at him, it was like I saw an ancient representation of his soul, is the best way I can explain it. It was like he was sitting right across from me, like he had been when we started, but suddenly it was him with this mandala pattern on him, but it was different. it wasn't the same pattern as on everything else. It was like he had these circles around his eyes, and it's like he had tribal, like a stripe here with white dots of light, and then across the bridge of his nose and down over his cheeks, these white dots of light in another stripe pattern, and then different hues on different parts. And behind him, I would see these, like, the best way I can explain it is like these long, tall petals of like an enormous flower coming up behind him, like it was if it was like almost
like a headdress.
Not on his head though, it was behind his head, like as if he had some ornate shoulder thing going on. And the thing was is that he was just sitting there looking at me, and I was looking at him, and they moved independently of him, but they moved in synchronous fashion. They all moved together. It was just really incredible and profound, and it was incredibly overwhelming. Now, the one thing I will say is the saving grace of it was because it was such an intense experience, was knowing that it was only going to last 15 minutes. Because for the first and only time I've ever experienced anything like that, I knew once I had regained my identity of self and all that stuff, it was like, oh my God. And then I was like, okay, well, it's going to be over soon, And please, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not advocating this. And here's the point. I did this very knowingly and from a very educated place, and from a very curious place in my spirituality, because I wanted to understand what it is when people see when they're on these journeys. What do they experience? How do you see something that's not there? To me, that was such a foreign concept. So I really wanted to understand what that meant. And I didn't get to see little beings and stuff.
Right.
Maybe I didn't do it right, or maybe I just wasn't ready to take that step yet, or whatever. But I can tell you that it was the most incredibly connecting experience in many ways. It was incredibly profound because I saw with my own eyes the energy interconnecting everything together in this light pattern that was impressed upon every surface, and it was absolutely breathtaking. It was like reality just went like extraordinarily technicolor. It was like boom. Everything was pulsing and glowing, and it was just phenomenal. And for me, it was a very spiritual thing. So I don't advocate this kind of thing for recreation. I don't advocate, and I will never advocate people use chemicals for anything. It's just wherever your journey leads you, don't be afraid to follow it, but don't do these things until you are sure you're ready for them, because they can be incredible tools to move forward on your journey if they're utilized properly and for the right reasons.
Right.
That person that was accounting that you read, that person was not doing it for the right reasons. They weren't doing it.
Right.
They were doing it like they were going to smoke a joint or something.
Yeah,
it's like, hey, cool, I got some DMT. Okay, dude, let's smoke it. Well, no, that's going to be incredibly counterproductive.
Right.
So it is something that should only be utilized by those people that are trying to expand and grow towards this spiritual existence.
Right.
And it's not necessary. I'm not saying it's necessary, but it was a path that I chose to take for very... Now it says stream complete. How the hell does that happen? Now it's resumed. It's doing that again.
We look fine on everybody's chatting away.
Okay. Well, I'm glad we haven't lost it. So, but anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that by sharing that, nobody gets a negative impression of it, because please understand, I'm not trying to advocate any of this. It was just a choice that I made, and it's I think important for me to share the why and the what and
oh wow,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I totally understand, because there was a time, I was 25-ish, and my brother and I were living with some people, and they were good people. But there was a lot of different drugs through there, and one of them was acid, LSD, and I absolutely loved LSD, but it was one of those things that I used and put away.
Right.
And while I had my trips, it certainly opened up my spirituality, to the possibility of all kinds of things. And this might be kind of like the genesis of my journey, looking for the things I may have lost, like I said last week. or may not have experienced because of my experiences to shut them down. But it was really profound to me in the sense that now it wasn't, as a matter of fact, Brent and I were just talking about this before the show. There's kind of a good side and a bad side to LSD. There's a clean side and a dirty side. And a dirty side is the more psychedelic, the more visuals, the more auditory hallucinations, things like that. But the clean side is like this connecting body high and this sense of merging. This is the way I describe it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had never had a bad trip. And mushrooms too. I was experiencing mushrooms at the time as well. And so, it was eye-opening. It was interesting. I paid attention to it. And that may be what kind of started opening me up to what else is going on that I'm missing,
Right.
but I still feel like I'm missing it.
Yeah.
And I still feel like, there's more to it. So, but, that was something. I was in a controlled environment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We did walk down to the store once and just bought this poop load of fudgesicles. And it was an awesome trip. My brother says that, when I'm on LSD, I turn as white as a ghost and move like a vampire. So it's kind of wild. So
You're Don Ferratu.
Don Ferratu. That's awesome. It was just one of those experiences where I knew I was okay, so I could let go and do things that I normally wouldn't do. But honestly, I think LSD is the great truth teller in a lot of ways. It'll tell you what kind of a person you are.
Oh, okay.
And so, it'll show you. It'll show everybody else too. If you're an asshole, you're an asshole. Just like rum. But so I think that's kind of where my real questioning, what is beyond? Is there something beyond? But then again, we're talking about something that happened 22 years ago already.
Right.
So, it's like, wow, it's just, I loved it. And,
Yeah.
It's something I like to experience every now and then.
And I can appreciate that. Now with me, that was my one and only experience ever with any kind of psychedelic substance, and it was again, it was a choice that I made very, very cognitionally. It was something that I wanted to understand for my own development. And again, I just need to reiterate that this is not advocating nor trying to promote this in any of you.
Right.
This is not what the show is ever going to be about. But since the subject had come up, I wanted to share that because for me it was a positive experience, but not one that I feel the need to repeat.
Right.
And I just needed to understand, and so now I do.
And the reason for us sharing with you is to just tell you where we're coming from in this sense. A lot of, because like Brent said, it was his experience to have. Thank you for sharing it, by the way. I know originally you didn't like sharing it, but I think by you sharing and me sharing these kinds of things, it opens other people up to, to sharing and actually saying the things that are on their mind.
Right.
Maybe, so, but anyhow, I digress. But I mean,
Well, no, I appreciate that.
I think that, their personalities, there are personalities you experience. You can experience other people in different ways.
Right.
And it helps you filter out the garbage.
Well, and there is so much garbage. And the thing is that, you're right. For a long time, I didn't want to discuss it because, for one, ladies and gentlemen, I'm a very private person. I just don't talk about me that much. I don't like talking about me that much. But, I initially as well, it was something that I didn't know how to explain. It was something that I experienced, but it took me a long time to be able to shape it into words and to understand the connotations of what I experienced. So I didn't want to explain it. In fact, after it happened, Chris was like, well, what do you think? And I was like, I don't know. It's like, I just seen this glimpse of reality that had never, it's really hard to comprehend. It's hard to process.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know how to put it into words, and I didn't for a long time. But, I think it's a choice I made,
Right.
and I made it, I believe, for the right reasons. And it didn't start any kind of habits or any counterproductive habits in my life.
Right. Yeah.
It just was an awareness I needed to understand for my own journey. So,
Right.
all right.
I think the only thing, that counterproductive in my life it caused was maybe a little lactose intolerant. I probably shouldn't have ate the whole bag of fudgesicles by myself, but still,
Well,
I digress.
And possibly some diarrhea.
Let me read just a couple more, because there's
Sure.
another one here. It says, I witnessed fractals of growing jungle formed guy. I witnessed fractals of growing jungle formed Gaia's face and spoke to me.
Wow.
Another time I had a crazy trip about some beings from another dimension or planet.
Beans.
I said beings.
You said beans
I
again.
did not.
You did too. You
Whatever.
totally did.
They were tall, slim beings with long human-like faces and hyper-inverted legs. They were in some sort of ceremony. It was on a mountainous volcanic island and was semi-green. They were dancing and vibrating in such strange manner in intersecting lines. I had never witnessed anything move like that. The colors and the sounds were hard to comprehend. The one standing with me communicated telepathically to me that they were surprised at how well I could perceive what was happening. I wish I knew more now. The trip didn't last long enough. Haha, I wish I could recreate it somehow. I never want to forget. Now, see, that I think is a connection there. Where they're understanding and they're trying to understand whatever that may be. So interesting there, and that's an interesting description. Tall, slim, long human-like faces and hyper-inverted legs, and they talked about the color, the semi-greens and the vibrating, intersecting lines and things like that. That's I've never experienced it, so I don't know, but I understand that that's kind of along the lines of what happens. Another one says, I met a man who called himself the Truth Bearer. He warned that to know everything was to face some harsh realities. We were then transported to a rooftop where he showed me that he lived as a hermit. He then laughed and told me that I was to aspire to be. He then sent me to an alien womb where I heard unintelligible and felt that the beings around me were analyzing my very existence.
The what?
Analyzing.
No, the what was analyzing?
Man.
Even the chat room saying you're saying beans.
I then started feeling scared because I could no longer move. They then opened the womb and sent me back to my bed. Interesting. I'm just going to ignore all of them. Let's see. Mainly just kind of, this other person relates their experience, mainly just kind of like the machine elves that McKenna talked about. Terrence McKenna, I assume,
Sure,
talked about when they were drilling and fixing something in my head, which actually felt pretty amazing. I hear that's quite often too. Frank talked about it, just he meets these beings and they fix what's wrong with him. I stressed about stuff before, and it gave me a stronger feeling that everything would be okay.
Wow.
So, and to end this, it says these experiences may simply be hallucinations of the mind, or maybe experiences with entities in showcasing another layer of reality that is typically hidden to us, or even possibly they are both.
The curiosity for me is that, and here's why there seems to be something to that being a real rather than imagined experience, is that people from very disparate places in the world have all reported these same things while doing the DMT experience. There's so many people report seeing these elves.
Yes, the clockwork elves.
Right. I mean, and they would not know of each other, but still experiencing the same thing.
Right.
Now, is it possible that it has the same effect, triggering certain parts of the brain, and that's the commonality being a human being? Doing the same substance would trigger the same response in the brain? Possibly, but, what if it's not? What if they are actually perceiving other realities? And I believe that they are, because, so many esoteric traditions in our world are talk of, being able to communicate with other beings.
Right.
And it's not always, quote unquote gods. It's, other beings. And so...
Beings.
Right. Beings. 2 syllables. Beings.
Beings.
So the point is that I think that lends a lot of credibility to the idea that it does open up some kind of communication pathway that is not normally accessible to us in our normal state.
I absolutely agree, and that's not just with DMT
Right.
or ayahuasca. I think peyote, mushrooms,
Sure.
natural psychedelics, things like that. I think, DMT is a natural psychedelic.
Well, yeah, and
so is ayahuasca.
Again, ladies and gentlemen, this is, these are natural substances. We're certainly not advocating people experiment with the non-natural ones for obvious reasons, that they're trash, they're garbage, they're horrible, and they will kill you eventually.
I knew a guy way back when. He used to talk to his demons because he did way too much acid in the 70s.
Eesh.
Yeah, he was kind of messed up, but he was a good guy.
Sure.
We used to go berry picking together.
I understand. That is scary, though. I can't imagine.
Yeah, he used to talk. We'd be out there picking blueberries, wild blueberries, and he'd be talking to himself.
Wow.
He'd have arguments with himself. Well, not with himself, with his demons outside of himself.
That's got to be an incredibly bizarre experience.
It was.
I mean, not. I mean, could you imagine that something is there? And I imagine the same thing. It could be true for any of the psychics,
right, that
truly are able to see these spirits and to talk and to hear the responses, that you could have these discussions. To me,
right,
that's so incredibly profound. And I'm speaking more of the, that ability in the brain that the psychics are able to tap into, that I really wish I could get there.
Right.
Because I would love to ask questions. I would love to share information with these beings that are not on our plane in the same way. What do they see? What do they experience? What knowledge is shared on their side of things that they could pass back to us?
Yeah, definitely.
How could we all grow as one if we were able to readily communicate with, these entities or beings? So, the next one I want to read to you is about the Duende.
Oh, the Duende.
Duende. Now, this one comes out of the Philippines, but I was born and raised in the Philippines, but we moved to the U.S. when I was 11 years old. This story happened in the Philippines when I was 7 years old, and I can recall some of the stuff that happened to me, but not to the fullest. My uncle retold the story again to me later on when I got a little older. And from time to time, when we have a family gathering, someone in the family will retell the story again, as it was a bit mind-boggling. The story started when my dad and I went to visit his sister, my aunt, and my cousins in the province. My aunt has 3 children. One is my age, and the other 2 are a couple years older than I was. And when we got to their house, I remember my aunt and cousins running out of the house to greet us with such joy and excitement. After the initial visit, my cousins and I went outside to play a game of hide and seek, and my older cousin was the seeker while everyone else hid. My aunt's house was out in the woods, and her house was surrounded by mountains and trees after trees and tall grasses. And again, this is in the Philippines, so by tall grasses, it can mean like 8 feet tall. There's this belief in the Philippines that most duendes, or also known as dwarves, live in the forest or a place where there's lots of trees. And of course, if you cross their path without saying tabi tabi po nuno, meaning pardon or excuse me, little people, they will cast you a bad spell. It all depends on the duende when you came across with, and some are nice and some are evil. If you cross an evil duende, He or she can cast a death wish on you, and some can give you warts all over your body and make you ugly and hideous, so people will be disgusted with you and don't want to be around you. Back to playing hide and seek, my cousin was the seeker and everyone else hid, and I wanted to hide where my cousin couldn't find me, so I saw this very big tree, what seemed to be a 100-year-old tree. Around it, I found a little hole, and that's where I hid. Without thinking and forgetting what my elders told me about the duendes, I forgot to say what we're supposed to say, and I hid a long time in the tree. After what seemed to be forever hiding, I came out of the hole and went back to where my cousins were, and they said they had given up looking for me since they didn't find me anywhere. That evening before dinner, I started to not feel good. I remember the shivers, the many trips to the bathroom, vomiting, and after that I can say, honestly, that I don't remember what else happened. But my dad and aunt told me I was practically in a coma for 3 days.
Wow.
They said that in some cases I was hallucinating. I would sweat heavily, laughed, cried, and sometimes I talked to someone in front of me as if that person was there. But there was no one there, and they even took me to a local hospital, but the doctors couldn't tell my family what was wrong. So my aunt asked her kids what we did outside, and my cousins told my dad and aunt that all we did was play hide and seek.
Right.
They said that I was gone a long time and that they couldn't find where I had hid. My dad and aunt knew that maybe I was the victim of an evil duende. They took me to albulario, right, which is basically a witch doctor, to find out what was wrong with me. As my dad explained to me, he said that as soon as they brought me inside the witch doctor's house, the witch doctor knew that I was being played or something evil was in my presence. The witch doctor lit a candle, took a tub and poured about 1 inch or 2 of water in it. Then she mixed a few drops of some special oil that comes from a plant in the water. That comes from a plant and put it in the water. Sorry. While chanting in some weird language, she took the lit candle and poured the melted wax in the tub with the water and the oil. And as she poured the wax, a figure started to form. My uncle said that the melted wax on the water formed a huge tree with a hole. Inside the hole was a human, which was supposed to be me. And around me was about 4 or 5 duende. And some were just standing there, staring at me, and some looked like they were throwing something at me. So the witch doctor had advised my family to take me back to where the big tree was and say, "Tabi tabi po nuno," and bring some fruits or offerings. That same day, my dad and aunt took me to the tree and excused me from any wrongdoings and brought with them plenty of nuts. All I remember was waking up the next day without any recollections of what had happened to me. That's pretty amazing.
They took with them lots of nuts.
How old are you exactly?
No, nuts, as in they're nuts to begin with.
Oh.
How old are you, mister?
Well, you started laughing like a schoolboy. Like,
yeah, because I thought they would
like,
leave.
It was like a Beavis and Butthead. He said nuts.
Nuts, as in like lost their marbles.
With a bunch of nuts. Yeah, I suppose that is funnier that way, isn't
goodness, it? Yes. I think
All right.
so.
How old am I? I don't know. It depends on the day, Don.
Apparently it's a Wednesday.
Some days I'm not as old as I should be.
Other
days I'm freaking ancient. That's the way I feel.
That's how I felt this morning when I woke up. I couldn't get my legs to work.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Your hand choking you anymore lately?
No. Oddly enough, no. As a matter of fact, I was thinking about that last night. I was laying in bed and I had my hand up here like this, and then I thought, you know what? Last time this happened, I woke up and my head was going like this.
God, that is just the funniest
thing. It's the craziest thing to experience. I swear to God, waking up to you pulling your own hair and trying to break your own neck.
So if you're new to the show, like raspberries, you might not know what we're talking about here.
Don has alien hand syndrome.
Don's hand will attack him in his sleep from time to time, like pulling his hair and punching him and trying to gouge out his own eyeballs and stuff.
It's all true. It really, really is. It's all true. I swear it. I've
believe
woke
you.
up and I've my hands just like gripped in my hair. I'm like, what the hell is happening?
So Don there, he's a little touched. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I've been touched by my hand.
That is
the alien hand is a grip of my soul. But no, it's those are totally true stories. I swear to God.
I believe you. I believe you
It's the
wholeheartedly.
craziest thing.
I've never known you to be a person who embellishes. So.
Oh, that's not even true.
Oh,
Well, I embellish a lot, just not on those kind of.
well, okay. I didn't know that, but
Oh yes, you do.
I do.
No,
not.
I mean for the show.
I mean trustworthy. You're a trustworthy
Oh,
person.
thank
is
you.
what I'm
Oh,
saying.
gotcha. No, Melissa cannot get a interview on the show. Thank you.
No, we were actually Obake and I were talking about that a while ago, and
Yeah.
around Halloween to do a show where we do potential EVPs with Melissa. So that might be on the drawing board here. I guess he and I haven't been able to touch base lately.
That may have to be a Friday show.
Oh, listen to you.
It'd be good. It'd be a good draw for you on Friday.
Oh, Don, it'll be good, and it'll be good to reopen your experience to the paranormal.
Yeah, well, that's not exactly paranormal. That's just nuts.
No, it's definitely paranormal. It fits the criteria pretty specifically. But no, we'll have to talk about it. That would be a good show. But we haven't had a chance to talk much lately because, of course, you've been busy, very busy.
He's had some things. Yeah.
And I've been very busy. I've not been able to spend much time in the studio lately.
Oh, now he's speaking for Melissa. He says, "I would love that." And this is Melissa saying this. Apparently Melissa's been speaking in the chat anyhow, but her little fingers are too small and she types so slow. Whatever.
Well, that's possible. She's a pretty established personality as far as I've heard.
She's got quite the personality from what I understand.
Well, we'd love to have her on the show. It's kind of what we do here.
Oops.
Most of us, unless you're Don and doesn't want to be around when that happens.
Oh no, creepy dolls are creepy dolls.
They are creepy, but that's the magic, though, right? So, as a paranormal investigator, that makes sense to have haunted dolls because
you gotta know what you're experiencing.
Well, one of the criteria for testing anything is to be able to, control the conditions and repeat it. Well, if you have a doll that's is housing a spirit, that's pretty good to be able to know that you're putting a spirit in the same place in the same condition over and over. And if you get repeated results, then that's pretty powerful, I think.
No bonding for me and Melissa.
Don,
oh my God.
Don wants to snuggle.
Why am I the guy who gets made fun of?
Well, because you're the one that's reacting the most. So
well, that's probably true.
You have decided you are the target of this show.
I am kind of yes. Okay, I'll accept my place in this show.
Right, but
I kind of enjoy it. So.
Yeah, well, there you go. I mean, if you're gonna be the target, you might as well enjoy being it.
Oh, well.
So very interesting
Duende
story, and Duende again is the little people. It's one of the things that Robin Moonshadow talks about is the Duende, and there are Duende in the U.S. as well. So it's not just specifically the Philippines that experiences them. Duende it's a Spanish word actually, and it's. Even, they spelled it Duwende, but I think it's Duendae, Duende. I don't know. It's a Spanish word, though. And, of course, the Philippines uses Spanish as one of the main languages.
Right.
Shout
out to Relished Razor, and thank you for your comment on my beard. It is rather mesmerizing.
That's my boy.
Isn't it?
There's my boy.
Anyhow, so yes,
What the hell was that?
I was just thinking. Pixie said Robin's awesome. I just thought, just like you said a bit ago, we got to get her back on the show at some point.
Yeah, we will.
So, yeah.
I mean, there's a lot that I need to start doing again as far as scheduling guests and stuff. But we had a good show with Sean and Joel this last weekend.
That was an excellent show.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and some great information was shared, and it has a lot. Well, it has everything to do with best practices, protecting yourself, things you can do as far as the paranormal, and that's certainly a topic that I want to explore a heck of a lot more, because there's a million shows on the web that are talking about paranormal incidences and occurrences and stuff. And I love that too. And I love it a lot. But I love the idea of giving our listeners some tools that they can work with, as far as how to combat a negative presence, how to combat, letting that into your house. Are there things that you can do to set your atmosphere so that they won't want to be there? And that was a lot of what we discussed on last Saturday's show. So they'll definitely be back to continue that journey, because they there was so much information and there's so much more that they could share. Both Sean and Joel had a lot of great insights. So if you didn't catch that show, please go back into YouTube archives and check out last Saturday's show. Now, the only problem is that it cut off, didn't it?
Yeah.
On the last 15 minutes. But
if you want, I could probably retrieve that from TFR and not so much amend it, but I could certainly upload it as a 15-minute audio so people could catch the end of it.
Actually, if you that's probably, that would be a great idea. Actually, if you could do that, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, I'll work on it right now.
Well, I mean, right now?
Well, yeah, I got to download it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the connection here is good.
I got you. We're good.
I was just kind of freaked out when I saw that the stream completed on YouTube. It was
okay. Well, now this will only take a second. It's only like 94 megs.
The only thing I'm worried about is, what if it launched a second stream now for this episode? Because that's what happened on Sean and Joel's night, was that it disconnected and it ended up creating about a 30-second reconnect video where we only said a few sentences and then it dropped off again. Remember how it tried to reconnect over and over?
Right, because it did create another one. You erased it.
Right.
Yeah, so, okay.
But it was only about 15 seconds long, so...
Right.
I just wasn't sure what it was, but I listened to it, and it was definitely after the initial break from that episode, and then it tried to reconnect and created a whole new episode, which was just stupid. But
weird.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with that. I may have to switch browsers. That's not something I'd noticed on the other browser I was using, but that started hiccuping, and so I switched to this other one. But I don't like that the streams seem to be jumping on and off.
Right.
And I've not experienced that. It shouldn't matter, though. That shouldn't have anything to do with the browser, because it goes directly to YouTube from our broadcast software. So, and now that I'm thinking about it, that really doesn't make sense. But I don't know. I'll keep brainstorming that, ladies and gentlemen. That's certainly not something that's going to entertain you guys a whole bunch. But
no, not
but we are trying to here on the Paranormal Portal. So let's see what else we can get into here. Now, this one sounds kind of cool. This is not extraordinarily long at all, but it says, when I was in the second grade, the family and I lived in a really creepy old house. I always thought it was neat, though, because I wasn't scared of anything when I was younger. One night I had a dream that I had the urgency of going to the bathroom, so I got up and walked down the hallway and to the bathroom. I felt the coldness of the bathroom tiles. I reached up to turn on the lights, but it flickered and died. After flushing the toilet, I felt myself walking backward toward the bathroom closet. It was as if my body magnetically attracted to the closet, and I couldn't stop it. I felt my head bang on the door of the closet, which was open, and a pair of furry fingers reaching out and touched my arm. Its nails were long and really sharp, and I would say it looked like a pair... looked like a pair that those werewolves have in the movies. And when I woke up that morning, I found myself sleeping on my bedroom floor. I immediately remembered my dream and lifted my shirt to see if I was hurt, because the dream had seemed so real, and there was a brown mark on my arm in place where the furry fingers had touched. I told my mom about it, and she was shocked and speechless at first, and then said she's never seen such a mark on me before, and said it was probably nothing. I still have that mark on my arm, and it never really distinguished if it was a dream or if it were real.
Huh.
That's creepy.
Yeah.
Again, what is it? I don't know. Had furry fingers, though. That doesn't qualify for a lot of things. Could be something altogether different. But that's got to be a horrible, horrible, helpless feeling.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
I guess that was the dawn of him becoming afraid of stuff. Because he said, when I was younger, I wasn't afraid of anything. Well, fear can be learned, I guess.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, now this one sounds more demonic, but we will see what it says. This one comes out of Ireland. Sorry, I had to swallow. I gotta get a drink quick. I'm a little dry.
Certainly. He's a little parched over there. You know what he needs is a good Reuben.
A good Reuben?
Good Reuben.
Actually, it sounds really good. I love Reubens.
Sounds great.
I've loved Reubens since I was a 6-year-old kid, 6 years old. All right, the story I'm about to unfold. Really? Is it laundry? Occurred in November of 2005, and it was just a normal Friday night. As I had planned to meet friends the following evening, I spent the night at home watching TV and in general just relaxing. At about midnight, I decided that it was a good time to go to bed. On this particular evening, just my dad and I were at home. Since he had gone to bed earlier, it was my responsibility to turn off the lights and lock up the house. On my way to bed, I passed the holy water font and blessed myself. This is a nightly habit and nothing out of the ordinary. At this stage in the story, I must point out that I'm a practicing Catholic. My religious beliefs play an important role in my life to this day. That said, I do not publicly show this. Put simply, it is between my Savior and me. Soon I was tucked up in bed. As an avid reader, I was reaching out for a book to enjoy when a little booklet of the Holy Rosary caught my eye. It is important to note that the week prior to this, I had kept hearing about the wonderful graces given by our Blessed Lady for reciting the Rosary in her honor. Although claiming to be religious and well-versed in such matters, the Rosary was one prayer that confused me as a child. No, I don't want that. Sorry. Let's see. And well, that and the fact that it is so long. For these reasons, I was never on my prayer agenda, but for some unknown reason, I felt required to say it. As already stated, I did not know how to go about it correctly, though. So during Saturday Mass, I mentally said to Jesus, if you want me to say it, just give me a sign. All was forgotten until just after Mass, when I was waiting on my grandmother, who was receiving confessions. Whilst waiting, I looked at some fresh flowers placed in front of an image of Our Lady, when to my astonishment, a step-by-step guide on how to say the Rosary was resting beside it. Having gone to this church for all of my 24 years, I had never seen such a leaflet. I took the guide home with me, and that night said it in its entirety for all the holy souls in purgatory. My good intentions soon diminished until that Friday night. Seeing the booklet and taking the rosary beads in my hand, I started it again. At 4:45 a.m., I awoke to my doorbell continuously ringing. I had obviously fallen asleep while saying it. At my door, I found my older sister, a little worse for wear. She had been out at her work Christmas party, and in the merriment had mislaid her key. I let her in and helped her get to bed. When she told me of all the office scandal, not wanting to wake my father, as she was a little loud, I informed her that she would have to fill me in on all the gossip the following morning. Now I found myself wide awake, and as I went back to my own room, I switched on the stereo to a low volume, switched off the light, and climbed happily into what was earlier a warm bed. I closed my eyes, plopped up my pillow, and pulled up my quilt to my neck in anticipation of a snug sleep. In the background, I could hear a song being played that was the cheesy hit of a previous summer. I was contemplating how come such a song would be so popular, when all of a sudden I heard the most terrifying sound of all my life. In the darkness of my room, about 10 inches from my face, I heard the most terrible growling in my entire life. It was so loud that I was sure that at any moment my father and sister would run into my room. My eyes were clamped shut in fear, and my heart beating out of my chest. Although I did not see what was there, the image in my head was that of a snarling evil dog. I felt pure evil that night. This evil had descended upon my room, and like the darkness was enveloping me, my immediate cry for help was to recite the Our Father out loud, while blessing myself over and over. I don't know when the growling stopped for sure. It was probably when I blessed myself. What I do know is that I got up and switched the light on, and as soon as possible, and for the rest of that night, said prayers until I drifted to sleep in the light, with the light on. I would like to say that there is no way I was dreaming when I heard this sound. I was completely awake and aware of my surroundings. Looking back, I feel it was the devil that visited me that night. I believe that somehow this experience was related to me saying the rosary. I believe that the rosary is powerful prayer, and one that the evil does not want us to use against him. This is the only one supernatural experience of many that has occurred to me, but it is the one that I hope will give hope to others of the power and protection of God. This is, okay, so he's reciting his prayer, and it's the Saint Michael the Archangel one. He said, "This is now my prayer before bed each night. Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the divine power of God, cast into hell Satan and all of his evil spirits, who roam through the world seeking the ruin of souls. Amen." There you go. You got a prayer on this portal, babe.
There you go.
I'm telling you.
We might need it.
It sure can't hurt.
It can't. You know, there's always good intention behind those.
And, you know, ladies and gentlemen, I'm never pushing a religious agenda. So it was a part of the story, so I just read it. But, some people are absolutely offended by that. But I would just like to remind you that people having a faith is not a bad thing.
Right.
People may misuse that or may corrupt it, but having a faith is a beautiful thing. So disparaging a faith in and of itself is silly. Keep it to the individuals. Don't categorize everything.
I like we were listening to someone earlier that said what I took from that particular thing is that church is supposed to be the ER room, you know, where if you're having crises, then you go to church and you talk to your preacher, priest, whatever that may be, whatever that representation is for you. But yet, you know, God is still for home, not recreation. Mm-hmm. You know, and that seems, and this person said that, you know, it seems that, going to church has become recreation, not spiritual. And but was flat out said that the way they believed is church was the ER room when you needed to talk to, you know, your pastor, priest, whatever. That's what it's for. It's not necessarily for gathering and gossiping, which is what it seems to like to me. Uh-huh. But I mean, that's just the way I feel.
Sure.
So, but definitely, you know, it's not for everyone, and for a lot of people, it's what is. So, but anyhow, that's just my 2 cents. Sorry about that.
All right. Well, I mean, it's fair enough. You know, I mean, it's fine. I don't know that what I think any faith should be is the practice of your life. It shouldn't be isolated to once a week. It shouldn't be isolated to whenever things are going to hell. Then you suddenly feel the need to be religious. Exercise your faith at all times, and by that I mean, you know, the goodness and being loving and kind and warm and you know, exercise whatever that faith is in every breath you take. And, you know, it's the prayer without ceasing.
Right.
I think that's what I hope, you know, people embody in their faith, whatever their faith is.
Right. I think what this person was saying was, though, that if you have a spiritual emergency, that's what going to church is for. But you're supposed to practice your faith, your belief at home, actively at home, but if you have, say, an issue with,
I appreciate that. Yeah, but
but you
I
don't
don't
agree? I
no,
understand.
not
Yeah, that's
really.
fine.
I mean, yeah, to each his own. But I appreciate that resonates with you, and that was important. I don't know. I mean, I'm not opposed to it either. It's just one of those things that, well, I think it's a pretty nice building to just sit there if you don't always need it. I don't know.
Well, see, but church isn't a building now.
Well, that's a good point, and that's what I think people that's what I'm getting at when I'm talking about people
Right.
embodying their faith, because the whole idea of a church or a synagogue or a mosque or a circle or whatever is not a place. It's not a ceremony. It's a way of life. Whatever it is you observe, I think it's if that's what you love and that's what you embody, then eat, sleep, breathe it, and bring it into the world to make the world a better place, because there's a whole lot of people walking around that don't seem to believe in much anything.
That's true.
And that's a scary thing.
That's true. I will agree with that.
All right, so this one is more about a cryptid kind of thing.
Mm.
I'm a 20 years old male from Australia. Grew up in a Muslim family, but stopped believing religion when I had feelings for someone of the same sex.
Oh.
I don't usually hear about ghosts and never really had any interest hearing it until today. The reason I'm writing this right now is because this morning something happened that I can't explain. It was 10 a.m. in the morning and I was still asleep. My mom came into my room and tried to wake me up. I didn't respond to her, so she touched me to see if I had a fever. And after she touched me, she left the room, and seconds later, I felt the presence of something else and weird noises. And I knew it wasn't my mom or my brother, but for some reason, I wanted to believe it was them. So I told them to exit, but still something walked towards me and touched me on my feet. It was the weirdest and most uncomfortable feeling, and was a mix between electric and paralyzing touch. Sorry, I'm a little froggy. It's this fall air. All right, I think I'm better. It freaked me out because I couldn't. It freaked me out, but I couldn't get up to see what it was. I was trying to scream, but nothing came out. It was moving slowly towards my face, and I just managed to see it. It was a small black thing. I can't describe the looks, but it was ugly and see-through, whatever it was. It was nothing anyone I knew had ever seen before. It was as tall as about a 6-year-old. From what I can remember, it was a bold thing. I kept trying to move and scream, but I couldn't, and it made really weird noises. Oh, that's got to be horrible. Jeez. Something just there, and it's and you can't do anything. It's got you just frozen. I can't describe how, but it sounded more like that noise you get when you turn on the hot tap. I don't know what their hot tap sounds like. Both my taps sound the same, but not exactly, but it's similar enough, and that I can't turn on the hot water tap without getting shivers. I don't know how, but it ended up leaving, and I managed to scream. I still wasn't able to scream as loud as I wanted, but I yelled enough to bring my family to my room, and after talking to them for a few hours, I went to have a shower, and I turned on the hot water, and a similar noise was there. I was freaked out and turned off the water, and the same noise was still there. I screamed and ran outside. That was a proof to me that it wasn't just a dream. I'm now freaked out, going to sleep in case I see it again. That is freaking crazy. I'll tell you in just a second. I can't believe what I've seen and don't know what to do. If anyone experienced what I experienced, I would love to talk to you about it. I don't know what you saw, what you experienced, but it sounds horrible. This is what's funny. On my screen, there's an ad for sandals.
Right.
Now, maybe it's because I was thinking of it earlier, but I was looking at my sandals. I didn't say it out loud, so it's not one of those things where, something was listening to me and decided to show me an ad for it.
Right.
I've never seen an ad for sandals ever on my computer.
Really?
And now on my screen, and it's the thing is I used to be in marketing, so I know that this is This is tailored to the viewer.
Right.
It's from the Google ad network. It's just people will have spaces available on their page, and they'll offer Google to place whatever ads they want in that same space. And it's a random thing based on the person coming to visit, tailoring it for their needs. But I just happen to see that now, and that's just hilarious. It's like, how the hell would I see an ad for sandals for the company called Journeys, Journeys?
Yeah. Fairly famous.
Are they? Okay,
Yep.
I've never even heard of Journeys before. I haven't been looking for sandals. I just happened to put mine on today and thought, man, my sandals are all worn out. I need new sandals.
Oh, well, see, now that makes sense because you forgot to tell us what you thought.
What?
Well, you said you thought about your sandals, but you didn't tell us what you were thinking about your sandals.
Right.
So
yeah.
now you have an ad to buy new sandals. Gotcha.
Right. So that's the weird thing. It's like, why would I said I never.
Right in the middle of this. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I'll tell you in a minute.
Well, I just thought. I was like, what?
Crazy.
I didn't even say it out loud. That's the weird part. Now, I do believe, ladies and gentlemen, your phones, your Facebook, and your Googles will be listening to what you're saying, and then they try to shoot ads to you because they know you're talking about something. I really believe that. It's happened too many times, and I've seen it occur.
Chocolate chip cookies.
All right, so now you said chocolate chip cookies. I'll guarantee you my computer's going to have a chocolate chip cookies. Yeah, Chips Ahoy or some chocolate chip cookie recipe or something. It's going to come up. But now this is the cool thing about this, ladies and gentlemen, is I believe energy follows intention. So it's like it's a subconscious manifestation is all I can say. I haven't talked about sandals. I haven't even mentioned sandals in my home, for any time I can remember, and certainly not up here in the studio where I'm barefoot every chance I can get. So I guess I'm supposed to look for sandals.
Let's really confuse them. Black-eyed beans.
No, that's not confusing at all.
What is that?
Even Google can't represent that. They can't work with that, Don. Yeah. Only that's a long beard right there.
There you go. So
you just long bearded it.
We've got him.
All right, so we're at about 9 o'clock. How you doing, brother?
Doing good. I'm kind of flagging though, but.
Are ya? Okay.
Yeah, it's been kind of a long day on top of a long day, so.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we discussed not nearly as many of these different creatures as I'd hoped to, but I think these kind of stories are really cool, and they do seem to represent the diverse nature of the paranormal world.
Definitely that.
Because these things are not, many of them sounded like just normal ghost stories, but the Duende, of course, are not necessarily unique, but they're not as common. Now, the interesting thing from the Duende story from the Philippines was that the only person that seemed to be aware that the Duendes would have been around this child was the medicine person. The witch doctor, medicine man, medicine woman, whatever, was able through the course of a ritual to see that this child was in there surrounded by 5 Duende. Mm-hmm. So the child was there and noticed nothing.
Right.
So, but people do report seeing these things as well. And that's the curiosity for me, is why is it visible for some people? Is that just the nature of their gift? Or do these beings choose when to be seen and when not to be seen?
Right.
And that's a possibility as well. Yeah, I mean, how the hell would you know that's a Duende home? Shouldn't be sitting in there hide and seeking,
right. Yeah, but, I also thought, she didn't see anything. She wasn't aware of anything,
mm-hmm.
And weird things can grow inside of old trees.
Right. So it could be just some weird fungus. You're right.
Well,
that's true.
I mean, that's, just the balance to the idea. But I mean,
I appreciate that.
But the idea is, oh my God, that's just crazy. I mean,
right.
that, she just being told about, make sure that you make your offering or ask your pardon, whatever that is, and so,
right.
Then having all that happen, so.
Okay. Now I do need to say, for the sake of the show, on the promotional poster that you'll see, if you'll go to Paranormal Portal Radio on Facebook, facebook.com/Paranormal Portal Radio. What the hell was the name of this thing? A Belize or? BLEW
Blue is.
All right.
I read it so long ago.
I know, and we just read it
I can
again.
find it.
it's just this weird looking squat creature that doesn't seem to have. It just seems to have shoulders that go up and around, and there's a face just above the chest, embedded in this mound of what looks like
Yeah.
muscles. I think it's a Balius or something like that, or Balis. Can you find it?
I'll find it.
I found it by Googling non-human entities and then going through the images, and that's where I found it. I guess I could pull it up again and just look. And ladies and gentlemen, tonight the ghost detector was absolutely quiet.
Absolutely quiet.
And,
Didn't say a darn thing.
Didn't say anything to us, and I'm going to look for this because I want to identify for you guys, the listeners, what that creature is on there. See, it is actually a reported cryptid. It is a creature that's been reported. It's very, very uncommon. It doesn't have, obviously the frequency of like a dogman or a Bigfoot. And the thing with talking about non-human entities and living or spiritual is that once you remove Bigfoot and once you remove dogmen, as far as the physical, there aren't a lot of. Now there very well may be tons of other things out there that are just as prolific as Bigfoot and dogmen, but Bigfoot and dogmen is sensational.
They hit so many levels.
Right, and so it's easy to find a lot of information on those things, but apparently these other creatures don't get discussed quite as much. Take for instance the Bigfoot. It's not. There's a lot of people that believe these things are out there. There's a lot of really well organized groups out there looking and researching and trying to find information on them to get them acknowledged as a living species. But because it has that widespread report or widespread enthusiasm for people to say, hey, I had an experience, I think I saw a Bigfoot.
It takes dominance,
Yeah, I mean, it's just something, there's so many people that are excited to hear about it. But when you talk about something appeared that had no head whatsoever, it looked like arms with, like it lost its head is all I can say. And, what the hell did I see? I don't understand. It had a face in its chest. People are going to say, well, you're freaking crazy. So perhaps that's why we don't hear as much about these other things, is that they are not acknowledged and widely accepted, whereas Bigfoot is pretty widely accepted and is growing, and as is the dogman is coming up as well.
Yep.
And even in the last couple of years, the dogman acknowledgement has grown and grown.
Right.
And there's a lot of people to thank for that. Of course, our good friend Linda Godfrey is one of them, and hopefully we can get her on the show again this fall. I'm looking forward to that.
Yep.
And we're going to work on getting Bear back on and see if we can get Sheldy on again for to continue her information. She really had some great stuff to share, and I haven't heard from her. I know she was dealing with a whole bunch of busyness in her life and a lot of things going on. So, but there's a lot of shows that are coming up. So hopefully we can pull together things that you all will love. And did you ever find that thing?
No.
All right, I'm going to try it. I'm going to try Talk Down.
Talk, Don. Okay. Well, yeah. I remember we talked about, we covered this on one of the cryptid shows that we were talking about, uncommon cryptids. And unfortunately, it's BLEMMYES.
Blemmies? Blemmies, okay.
Right. So, the headless man creature feature.
Did somebody tell us that, or
no,
did you
I just found it.
Oh, funny.
I found a different picture, and it was like, oh, that looks familiar, and then there's the word. So, yeah.
I just wanted to acknowledge what that was because we never did touch on that, but that is something we have discussed on the show before.
That's crazy. It's actually a nomadic. The history-wise,
please,
were a nomadic Beja tribal kingdom that existed from at least 600 BC to the 3rd century AD in Nubia. Interesting. Well, but I don't think that actually. I don't think that it's an interesting side note, but I don't think that's what exactly they were talking about. Various species of mythical headless men were rumored in antiquity and later to inhabit remote parts of the world. They were variously known as some Greek word that I won't try, or the blemi in Latin. That's Blemmies. We'll call it the blemies, but it's bleme in Latin. And described as lacking a head with their facial features on their chest. These were first described as inhabitants of the Nile system. Later traditions confined their habitat to a particular island in the Brizone River and shifted to India. They're said to be two types, with eyes on the chest or with eyes on the shoulders.
Very cool. All right.
Huh, interesting.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. We
Your
did discuss the
history-
blemmies as well.
History lesson of the paranormal.
Right. There's all kinds of crazy stuff out there, ladies and gentlemen. So definitely leave the light on.
Leave that on.
But
Get those paranormal portal sheets.
yeah, get your paranormal portal sheets and strap on your long beard because it also serves to protect the juggler.
Juggler.
The
I can't
juggler.
get a grip. I can't get a grip.
He's like a pit bull. Don't let him fool you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other.
Hit that
And
like button.
hit the like button if you haven't already. Please spread the word about the portal. I hope you guys enjoyed tonight's show. It's always a little scattered here on the portal, but I think we always have fun, and I hope you guys are having fun watching it as well. So
Absolutely.
we will, of course, be back on Friday night, or at least I will. Don won't be joining me this Friday,
No,
but he
sorry.
will return on Saturday night when we'll continue the mayhem that is the portal.
Absolutely.
And so if you guys have any show ideas you'd like to see covered here on the portal, definitely email us, or your own paranormal experiences you'd like shared, or you just want to talk about what you're going through privately. paranormalportalradio@gmail.com.
There you go.
Find us on Twitter. We are on Twitter at Paranormal Portal, PORTL. And I'm sure there's more.
MeWe.
MeWe.
We are on MeWe.
Yes, we are.
We are on BitChute, DTube.
And I think that's it for the
Yeah.
video media.
I think so.
All right. So, again, we'll see you Friday night. Be
Yep.
good. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your week. You're on the slide now. It's coming right up to Friday before you know it. So hang in there.
Love you.
We love you all. And we'll see you on Friday night for more of the portal. And I have to actually change screens.
Night.
Blowing you all a kiss. Just because that's how I roll. What?
Monster
What, Don?
of the day. Ruthie C says, monster of the day. There you go.
There
Good
you
night,
have
all.
it. Good night.